At a family barbecue, my husband told everyone I was just a pretty face. They laughed while I stayed quiet. The next day, his company announced their new CFO, me. He didn't know I'd been interviewing for the position behind his back. The day was perfect, sunny skies, a light breeze, and the smell of grilled meat floating through the air. We were at my in-laws' house for their annual family barbecue. Everyone was laughing, eating, and catching up. It should have been a nice, easy day. But with my husband, Mark, easy didn't usually exist. Mark loved being the center of attention. The louder people laughed at his jokes, the more smug he became. At first, I used to think it was charming, that he just had a big personality. But over time, I realized it wasn't confidence. It was ego. I was sitting beside him on the picnic bench, sipping lemonade and quietly chatting with his sister, when someone asked Mark how his company was doing. "Oh, you know," he said, leaning back with a grin, "business is business. It's hard work, not everyone can handle the pressure." His dad laughed. "Yeah, not like those desk jobs where you just look pretty all day, huh?" Mark smirked and turned to me. "Exactly. My wife's just a pretty face, she leaves the real work to people like me." The table erupted in laughter. Every single one. Even his mother chuckled softly. I felt my stomach twist, but I didn't say a word. I just smiled politely, pretending it didn't sting. Mark leaned over, patted my hand, and whispered, "Relax, babe. It's just a joke." A joke. Right. I forced a small smile and excused myself to help his sister in the kitchen. But once inside, I took a deep breath, steadying myself. His words kept replaying in my head, "just a pretty face." The thing is, I'd been staying quiet for a reason. For months, I'd been applying for higher positions in the corporate world. I had a degree in finance, years of experience, and I'd been shortlisted for a major executive role, one that would change my life completely. And Mark had no idea. As I stood by the window, watching him laugh with his family outside, I made myself a silent promise. Let them laugh. Let him enjoy it. Because soon, the joke would be on him. That night, after the barbecue, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling while Mark snored softly beside me. His words from earlier kept echoing in my mind like a broken record. She's just a pretty face. I'd smiled on the outside, but something inside me had shifted. For years, I'd put my dreams on pause for him. When we got married, Mark wanted to build stability first. That meant I had to quit my full-time job and support him while he grew his business career. I took part-time freelance work, managed the house, cooked, cleaned, smiled through dinners, and listened to his endless rants about how tough it was being a man in the corporate world. But secretly, I'd never stopped dreaming. I had a degree in finance and had worked my way up in several firms before we got married. I knew I had what it took to run numbers, lead teams, and make real financial decisions. So, about 6 months ago, when I stumbled across an opening for a chief financial officer position at one of the top companies in the city, I applied quietly. I didn't even tell my closest friend. I'd wake up early to review spreadsheets and performance reports before Mark got out of bed. I rehearsed interview questions while doing the laundry, memorized market stats while stirring dinner, and sent follow-up emails during the moments he thought I was just scrolling social media. Ironically, Mark thought I was spending too much time online shopping. The first interview went so well that the recruiter asked me to come in for a second round. When I saw the company name clearly on the email header, my heart stopped for a second. It was Mark's company. At first, I thought it had to be a coincidence, maybe a different branch or a partner firm. But after a bit of research, it became clear, this was the same corporate office where Mark worked as a senior manager. I sat there at my desk, stunned, reading the email over and over again. The universe really did have a sense of humor. For a few minutes, I considered withdrawing my application. It would be awkward. Complicated. Risky. But then I remembered how small he made me feel earlier that day, in front of everyone. How I'd been quiet for years while he got to play the role of the accomplished husband. No. Not this time. I typed my reply. Thank you for the opportunity. I'll be there. And I hit send. As I closed my laptop that night, a slow, confident smile crept across my face. He called me just a pretty face. I couldn't wait to see his expression when he realized that pretty face was about to become his new boss. The morning of the interview, I woke up before the sun. For a moment, I just sat there, looking at my reflection in the mirror, calm, steady, and quietly determined. Mark was still asleep, mumbling something about a meeting he had that day. The irony made me want to laugh. He had a meeting, all right. So did I, one that would change both our lives. I slipped into a navy blue suit, pulled my hair into a neat bun, and applied minimal makeup. Just enough to look professional, not glamorous, not distracting. For once, I didn't want to be the pretty face he always reduced me to. I wanted to walk into that room as the woman who earned her place. By the time I got to the office, the air was electric. I'd been there before, at company parties, networking events, and dinners where I stood quietly beside Mark while he talked shop with his colleagues. No one ever paid much attention to me then. I was the supportive wife. Now, I was walking through the same lobby for a completely different reason. The receptionist greeted me warmly. "Good morning, Ms. Parker. The board is ready for you." I thanked her and followed her into a sleek glass conference room. There were 6 people seated around the table, the CEO, the HR director, and several board members. Thankfully, Mark wasn't there. His department wasn't part of the hiring panel. From the moment the interview began, something inside me just clicked. They asked about my financial strategy experience, crisis management, budget forecasting, and leadership style. I spoke clearly, confidently, backing every point with solid examples. I wasn't nervous, not even a little. Halfway through, the CEO leaned forward and said, "We're looking for someone who can bring a fresh perspective. The last few years have been, let's just say, old-fashioned." I smiled slightly. "Then you'll need someone who knows what it's like to be underestimated, and still perform anyway." They exchanged approving glances. For the first time in a long time, I felt seen. By the end of the interview, the CEO shook my hand and said, "Thank you, Ms. Parker. We'll be in touch soon, but, between us, I have a good feeling about this." When I left the building, I was floating. The same building where my husband bragged about real work, where he laughed about how women couldn't handle pressure, had just seen me at my best. That night, over dinner, Mark complained about some restructuring happening at his company. He said upper management was changing, and that a bunch of suits were coming in soon to shake things up. I bit into my salad and said, "Well, maybe that's a good thing. Fresh leadership can bring new energy." He scoffed. "Please. Corporate changes are all talk. Half the time, they just hire people who look good on paper but don't have any real-world sense." I smiled. "Guess we'll see." He didn't notice the tiny smirk on my lips, or the email that buzzed on my phone under the table. "Congratulations, Ms. Parker. Welcome aboard as our new Chief Financial Officer." The following Monday, Mark was up early, buzzing with energy. He buttoned his shirt, adjusted his tie, and said, "Big day today. We're having an all-hands meeting, apparently, the board's announcing the new CFO." He rolled his eyes dramatically. "Probably another corporate puppet. Hopefully someone decent, because our last one was useless." I smiled into my coffee cup. "I'm sure whoever they picked will be very capable." He didn't catch the hint. He was too busy rehearsing whatever witty remarks he planned to make in the meeting. When he left, I waited exactly 15 minutes, then grabbed my briefcase and headed to the office myself. Walking through those same glass doors felt surreal. Just a few days ago, I'd been here nervously interviewing, now I was coming in as the boss. HR had coordinated everything quietly to keep the surprise intact. The CEO personally asked me to let him handle the reveal during the company-wide meeting. I didn't argue. I knew how poetic it would be. By noon, every department had gathered in the large conference hall. The energy was thick with curiosity and caffeine. Mark sat somewhere in the middle, surrounded by his buddies, probably ready to make snide comments if the new CFO didn't fit the part. The CEO stepped up to the podium. "Good afternoon, everyone. As you know, our company's entering a new chapter, one that requires strong leadership, vision, and the ability to adapt to change." He paused dramatically, letting the suspense build. "I'm honored to introduce our new Chief Financial Officer, a woman whose intelligence, composure, and experience impressed the board beyond measure. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Ava Parker." For a split second, the room was silent. Then, all heads turned toward the entrance, where I walked in. Heels clicking. Head high. Calm smile. And right in the middle of the crowd, I spotted Mark. His smile faltered. His jaw literally dropped open. One of his coworkers whispered something to him, but he didn't respond. He was frozen, pale, wide-eyed, completely stunned. I took the microphone, thanked the CEO, and addressed the staff. "It's an honor to join this company," I began. "I've seen how hard everyone here works. My goal is simple, to build a culture where hard work and respect go hand in hand. Everyone, regardless of title, deserves to be valued." My eyes lingered on Mark's for half a second as I said that last line. The CEO smiled proudly. The room burst into applause. Meanwhile, Mark just sat there, clapping slowly, eyes locked on me in disbelief. When the meeting ended, a few employees came up to shake my hand and congratulate me. I caught snippets of whispers, "Isn't she Mark's wife? Wait, she's the new CFO? Oh, this is going to be interesting. I didn't rush to talk to him. I just smiled, thanked everyone, and let the whispers spread naturally. For once, I didn't need to say a word. The look on his face said it all. After the meeting, the whispers followed me down the hallway like a soft echo. Every corner I turned, people were talking, about the new CFO, about the shock on Mark's face, about how poised and elegant I'd been. By the time I reached my new office, the one with the glass walls and the skyline view, I felt a quiet satisfaction settle in. I wasn't here to humiliate anyone. I was here because I earned it. But karma? She sure had a sense of timing. About 30 minutes later, there was a knock on my door. I didn't have to look up to know who it was. Come in, I said evenly. Mark stepped inside, still visibly stunned. He closed the door behind him and stood there like he wasn't sure what to do with his hands. Ava, he said softly, you're the new CFO? I leaned back in my chair, meeting his eyes. That's right. He gave a shaky laugh. You didn't tell me. I tilted my head. Would you have taken me seriously if I had? He opened his mouth, then closed it. I mean, yeah, of course I would've. I cut him off with a raised eyebrow. You called me just a pretty face in front of your entire family 2 days ago, Mark. You told them I wouldn't understand real work. And now you're standing in front of your wife, who just became your company's chief financial officer, pretending that wasn't you. He looked embarrassed, rubbing the back of his neck. Look, Ava. I was just joking. You know how it is, I didn't mean anything by it. I'm proud of you, really. I smiled politely. Good. Then you'll have no problem showing that same respect in the office. He blinked. Wait, you mean? Yes, I said, standing up. In this building, I'm not your wife. I'm your superior. His face went pale. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. And don't worry, I won't treat you any differently than the rest of the team. As long as you do your job, we won't have a problem. He nodded quickly, clearly unsure what else to say. I could see a dozen thoughts flickering behind his eyes, embarrassment, disbelief, wounded pride. I turned back to my desk, already opening a folder. Close the door on your way out, please. I have a call with the CEO in 5 minutes. He hesitated for a moment, then quietly left. The second the door clicked shut, I exhaled slowly, a small, satisfied smile tugging at my lips. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about respect, the kind I'd waited years to finally claim. That evening, I got home late. Mark was unusually quiet at dinner, his usual arrogance gone. He didn't joke about my job. He didn't say much at all. Halfway through the meal, he finally muttered, "You were amazing today." I looked up and smiled faintly. Thank you, Mark. Maybe next time, think twice before underestimating the woman sitting beside you. He nodded, eyes down. For once, silence felt comfortable, not heavy, not bitter, just peaceful. As I cleared my plate, I glanced out the window and whispered to myself. They called me just a pretty face. But now, this pretty face signs the paychecks. And for the first time in years, I truly felt seen.